The sun sank low over Willow Creek, painting the sky orange and casting long shadows across our quiet neighborhood. Rows of tidy houses lined the streets, their lawns clipped like they'd been measured with a ruler. For 5 years, this had been home for me, Jake Carter, and my 7-year-old daughter, Lily. After my wife, Sarah, passed away from cancer, we'd poured our hearts into making our 2-story house ours. The backyard was our sanctuary, a creaky swing set under sprawling oak trees, a small pond where Lily tossed pebbles, and a vegetable garden bursting with tomatoes, zucchini, and herbs. On weekends, we'd kneel in the dirt, Lily giggling as she named each plant, Mr. Tomato, Lady Basil. It wasn't just a garden, it was where we healed, where I saw Sarah's smile in Lily's muddy grin. But in Willow Creek, peace came with a catch. The Homeowners Association, led by Margaret Hensley, a retired teacher who ruled with a clipboard and a glare that could curdle milk. Margaret's HOA newsletters arrived monthly, packed with rules about everything: how tall your grass could be, what shade of beige your shutters needed to be. Most folks rolled their eyes but complied. I did too, paying dues on time, keeping my fence painted. I never thought those rules would target me. That changed one October morning when I found a letter in my mailbox, the HOA's logo stamped like a warning. Margaret's looping signature sat at the bottom. "Your landscaping is non-compliant with community aesthetic standards," it read. My garden, our pride and joy, was labeled a public nuisance. I had 30 days to remove it or face a $500 fine. My heart sank. I pictured Lily's face when I'd have to tear down her favorite tomato plants. This wasn't right. I tossed the letter on the kitchen counter, telling myself it was a mistake. A week later, a second notice arrived, sharper this time. Attached was a grainy photo of my garden, red circles around the raised beds like evidence in a crime scene. "Unapproved vegetation," it said, pointing to a bylaw about needing board approval for landscaping. I dug out the HOA handbook, a brick of a document nobody read cover to cover. Sure enough, there it was in fine print: all landscaping needed a permit. I'd never heard of anyone submitting one for a few plants. My neighbor Sam had roses. Mrs. Lopez had a cactus patch. Why me? I called the HOA office, my hands sweaty on the phone. Margaret's voice was cold, like she'd rehearsed it. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter. Submit a compliance plan, or the fines increase." I tried to argue, but she cut me off. "This isn't personal." Her tone said otherwise. I'd seen her watching my yard from her pristine colonial house 3 doors down, lips pursed like my tomatoes offended her. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the letter in front of me. Lily was upstairs, her crayons scratching as she drew pictures of pumpkins. My job as a mechanic kept us afloat, but savings were tight: car repairs, medical bills from Sarah's last months, school supplies for Lily. I couldn't afford fines. I typed up an appeal, pouring my heart into it. I wrote about how the garden saved us money on groceries, how it taught Lily responsibility, how it was the one place we felt whole. I mailed it certified, hoping for a shred of understanding. A week later, the response came, not just from Margaret but the whole board. Appeal denied, plus a $200 processing fee for delayed compliance. I read it twice, my chest tight. Lily wandered in, holding a drawing. "Is this about the garden, Daddy?" she asked, her brown eyes wide. I forced a smile. "Just paperwork, kiddo. Go finish your pumpkins." But inside, I was breaking. The next HOA meeting was my chance to fight. The community center was lit up like a hospital, fluorescent bulbs humming over rows of folding chairs. About 30 neighbors showed up, some curious, others just there for the free coffee. The board sat at a long table, Margaret in the center, her gray hair pulled tight in a bun. I stood when called, my palms sweaty. "This garden means everything to us," I said, holding up a photo of Lily watering her plants. "It's not hurting anyone. Please reconsider." My voice shook a little. Margaret leaned forward, her pen tapping. "Mr. Carter, this isn't about feelings. It's about order. Your yard disrupts the community's look." She proposed a new rule: all gardens, even old ones, needed board approval. The vote passed 4-1, with only Harold, a quiet retiree, voting no. Neighbors whispered as I sat down, my face burning. Sam patted my shoulder, but no one else spoke up. I left feeling like an outsider in my own home. Fine started hitting hard, $500, then $750, then $1,000. Each notice came with a new photo of my garden, like Margaret was stalking it. One evening, I caught her by my fence, snapping pictures with a little camera. "Just documenting," she said, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to shout, but Lily was on the swing, calling, "Look, Daddy, I'm flying!" I waved back, my stomach in knots. My savings were down to a few thousand, and I'd already cut back on Lily's dance classes. Nights were spent on my laptop, reading HOA horror stories online. People said to lawyer up or pay and move on. But this house held Sarah's memory. Her favorite blue curtains still hung in the living room. Moving wasn't an option. Then came the shed notice. Our little tool shed, there when we bought the house, was supposedly 6 inches too close to the property line. Fine, $2,000, plus an order to tear it down. I measured it myself with a tape. Maybe it was off a hair, but this was ridiculous. I drove to Margaret's house, her lawn so perfect it looked fake. I knocked, my voice steady but angry. "This feels like harassment, Margaret. Why are you doing this?" She stood in her doorway, arms crossed, a smirk on her face. "Rules are for everyone, Mr. Carter. Get a lawyer if you don't like it." The door shut. Rain started falling as I stood there, feeling helpless but fired up. I found Tom, a lawyer who'd battled HOAs before. He was in his 50s, gruff but sharp, with a small office cluttered with files. Over coffee, he laid it out. "HOA fights are slow and expensive, Jake. But let's dig." He pulled county records and found something big. Margaret's backyard pergola, a fancy wooden thing with climbing vines, was built without a permit and crossed onto shared HOA land by a foot. "She's a hypocrite," Tom said, his eyes gleaming. "We can use this, but it'll make her mad. You ready for that?" I nodded, thinking of Lily. This was about more than a garden now. It was about our home. The next meeting was packed, tension thick in the air. Margaret pushed for a lien on my house, saying my violations hurt property values. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. I waited, then stood, holding the pergola records. "If we're talking rules, Margaret, what about your unapproved pergola? It's on community land." I passed copies around. The room buzzed. Margaret's face went red. "That's irrelevant," she snapped, but Harold chimed in. "Seems fair to check everyone's properties, not just Jake's." Neighbors murmured agreement. Someone called for an audit of the board. Margaret slammed her gavel, ending the meeting early. As she stormed out, her glare hit me like a dart. I'd drawn blood, but I knew she'd hit back. The retaliation was sneaky. My mailbox was bashed in one night. Then my car's tires were slashed. No proof it was Margaret, but her friends, like Carol, who always nodded along at meetings, stopped waving when I passed. Lily noticed the change. "Why's everyone mad, Daddy?" she asked, her voice small. I hugged her. "Some people don't like when you stand up to them." I put up a security camera, catching a shadowy figure near the shed one night, but it was too blurry to use. Tom filed a state complaint for HOA overreach, but he warned it could take months. I felt trapped, checking my bank account daily as fines ate away at our future. Then came the biggest blow. One morning, county trucks rolled up, lights flashing. Lily clung to my hand as I stepped onto the porch. Margaret stood at the edge of my yard with 2 board members and an inspector, holding papers. "Mr. Carter," she called, loud enough for neighbors to hear, "your backyard's been reclassified. An old easement from the 1970s makes part of it public land. We're assessing it for community use." My jaw dropped. My deed showed the 2 acres, including the woods where our garden sprawled with a chicken coop and pond, were mine. But Margaret had found a dusty survey about a forgotten footpath, barely visible now. "We're setting up a test campsite," she said, as her crew unloaded tents and grills. "Oh, and your septic system needs inspection. Old ones can be hazardous." Lily whispered, "Are they taking our garden?" I knelt, forcing a smile. "Not if I can help it, kiddo." But I was shaken. This felt like a land grab dressed up as rules. By noon, tents dotted my yard, people trampling my zucchini plants, laughing like it was a picnic. Sam stopped by, shaking his head. "She's out of control, Jake." "I'm sorry." I nodded, too angry to speak. The ground was soggy from recent rain, and I remembered our septic system, old and finicky, especially after storms. Tom had mentioned in an email that heavy foot traffic could stress it, creating a health hazard. I didn't tamper with anything, but I called the county health department anonymously, saying a campsite on private land might cause problems. I hoped they'd shut it down. That night, as campers sang and grilled, the septic system groaned. The extra weight from tents and people, plus the wet ground, was too much. By morning, the leach field overflowed, a foul smell spreading fast. Campers shouted, scrambling to pack as mud turned to sludge. Margaret, who'd shown up in a pristine jacket, slipped and fell, her face twisted in horror. "You did this," she yelled, pointing at me. I stood on my porch, phone recording. "I warned you about the system. You shouldn't be here." The inspector returned, frowning. "Septic failure happens with overload. This camp's a hazard." Tom arrived with the injunction, showing the easement expired years ago. "This is private property. Clear out." Margaret's crew left, abandoning soggy tents. Neighbors watched, some laughing. A reporter, tipped off by someone, maybe Sam, filmed it all, calling it HOA's sewage fiasco online. The story exploded. Social media lit up with clips of the muddy chaos, dubbed Margaret's Mess. Neighbors posted their own HOA complaints, fines for kids' toys, bans on certain dog breeds. Petitions for a board audit spread. That evening, the community center was packed for an emergency meeting. Margaret stood at the podium, her usual confidence gone. "This is a misunderstanding," she said weakly. I stood, holding more than just the pergola records now. Tom had gotten leaked emails from Carol, who'd turned on Margaret after years of being bossed around. They showed Margaret's plan, target problem homeowners like me to force sales, then split profits with a developer friend. "This isn't about rules," I said, voice steady. "It's about power and greed." I showed the emails. Neighbors gasped. Harold stood. "Enough. We vote now." The room erupted in agreement. Margaret was out, her resignation forced that night. She left in silence, the doors slam echoing. The aftermath changed Willow Creek. The fines were dropped, and Harold took over, rewriting rules to be fair, clear votes, no secret fees. The state investigated HOAs statewide, using our case as a spark. Margaret sold her house at a loss and moved, rumors saying to a condo with its own strict rules. Our garden came back stronger, Lily and I replanting side by side. "We're like superheroes, right, Daddy?" she said, dirt on her nose. I laughed. "Yeah, kiddo. Garden defenders." Neighbors became real neighbors. Sam hosted barbecues. Mrs. Lopez shared her cactus tips. Block parties popped up, kids running free without fear of fines. The fight left scars, though. I'd wake up some nights, heart racing, remembering the helplessness of those fines piling up. Lily drew pictures of our garden as a castle, guarded by stinky moats, her way of processing it. I learned to check rules myself, to never assume fairness. But I also saw the good, people coming together, standing up. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was home again, alive with new gardens and laughter. The lesson stuck: when someone tries to bully you with rules, dig deeper, find allies, and fight smart. Our backyard stayed ours, and so did our hope.